You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by FootballStadiumPrints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're a Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped! Yes! And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot of the goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot. And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
Hey there, soccer fam. Sorry for the long break, but we are back at you this week for another action-packed People's Pitch podcast episode, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. I'm your host, John, and with me, as always, is my main dude, the cool guy, the Nate Morales. Nate, just when you think there is not much to talk about, we go and provide another reason to be relevant in the U.S. soccer sphere.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't tell, John and I are hot off of the back of a club event at UPSL Brewing, a Q&A session with the supporters around our move, or I shouldn't say our move, our addition of a new league into the Minneapolis City ecosystem. This is going to be a good one, John, as we talk about that, as well as our UPSL season. We got all sorts of hot takes in our brains and all sorts of cold beer in our bellies. So let's get to it.
Just full of UPSL beer right now.
It's not that cold anymore. This week we've got some news to cover. Obviously, the announcement that the club put out today to the world. We want to talk a little bit about that, as well as, we did it for the NPSL. Now we're going to do it for the UPSL, the official, unofficial People's Pitch Award time. We want to make sure the other team, both teams, get their due since there were so many great moments to celebrate on the UPSL field. So let's get rolling. As all of you know by now, in what probably was one of the worst kept secrets in soccer behind that the MLS is probably going to Vegas, MPLS City announced as the new team. Heartland Division, the Heartland Division of the USL2, joining the likes of Des Moines Menace, Green Bay, Caw Valley, Thunder Bay, St. Louis. The list goes on, and the division is ever evolving. But USL2 is a big deal for lower league soccer, and we are happy to join. Obviously, exciting news item. Two things, John, that I want to cover off on, because I think there are a number of podcasts that you've been on, you've made appearances on. Protagonist, I know we've got guys on 10,000 Pitches. There's all sorts of other podcasts around the country that you are making appearances on, as well as Dan and you are making statements to the press around. So just here, for our sake, I want to talk about two things. First, what does this mean for the NPSL club as we have known it for the last 5 years? Because I think that's the biggest question, and that is the subject matter of our podcast for so long. So I want to make sure that we are clear on moving forward what we are going to talk about here on People's Pitch.
Well, I mean, we're not going anywhere from an NPSL perspective. I just want to just right out of the gates, just throw that out there. But from a club perspective, when you look at it, a couple different things to really touch on here. Number one being that historically speaking, the PDL, or what is now USL2, has kind of been the gold standard for amateur soccer, and it's no surprise when I say that. So moving into that conversation from a club perspective is big because of the fact of not only what it offers our players, but from what it offers the club. What it offers our players is truly what the USL2 is built on. I mean, it's a hashtag in their on their masthead, pathway to pro. So
Yeah.
we've had professionals come out of Minneapolis City. You talk about Brandon Bai, talk about Luke Hawkinson. There's many other players that have played professional soccer after playing with Minneapolis City. But this now offers the club the opportunity and the players the opportunity to get that exposure to a truly focused professional structure of soccer. Yes, it's not direct to MLS, which is number one on the pyramid. But what it does offer is our players the chance to be in the conversation with a little bit more ease potentially than what it could have been in the past. So
Yeah.
I think the number one thing is from a player perspective. Number two, from an organizational perspective, when you look at leagues across America, you talk about like the professionalism and the standards. Yes, NPSL has standards that you have to live by. Yes, the UPSL has those standards as well. But when it comes down to like brass tacks and the letter of the law, the USL2 just offers that bump, man. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that extra sprinkling of the organizational secret sauce that just make it that one step better in certain people's eyes. And to some folks it might not feel like that's a thing, but it really is a thing. And organizationally, we've been tossing around multiple ideas of what's our next step and where do we feel we fit in, and we feel that USL2 from a programming perspective is just something we have to add to what we already offer.
Yeah. To your first point, I think, while the quality of Minneapolis City soccer is hard to deny, I still think the reputation of the USL2, and it's been clear over the years that the reputation of the USL2 is really what draws college coaches to push their players to play at that level, right? You found as director that it's really hard sometimes to convince coaches to send their
Mm-hmm.
young men to Minneapolis City, just because they know that the USL2 provides that level of organization, provides a standard level, like a really consistent level of competition, right? They just know that if I put my kid in a USL2 program, he's gonna get out what I need him to get out of it, and we can move on, right? Whereas like with Minneapolis City, with the NPSL, you have to do a little bit of convincing. Sometimes coaches have to see it for themselves and really understand how the NPSL fits into their programs, which it might not always do. So it's really nice to have USL2 kind of now in our holster as we continue to develop youth soccer for young men here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at like the roster of players that have gone on and at some point in their soccer journey played in the USL2 or the PDL that could have played for us, Max Siegward, he took a gap year and played 1 year in the UPS or in the USL2. Ian Smith did the same thing. You look
Samo,
at
Rory probably would have, or Rory did, right?
Rory did, and look at what he's doing in college this year at New Hampshire. You look at, like you said, Samuel did it. You look at Bernard Ashby Rule, who did it for 2 years. All of these players, if we had the opportunity to talk to their college programs and say, like, we're in the USL2, they would have gone nowhere. They would have stayed at home. They would have come back where they feel comfortable, and they would have gotten exactly what they needed to get out of our program, which would have happened in the NPSL. But like you mentioned, for some college coaches, that just having that USL2 attached to you is truly scripture, right? It's
Reputationally, it's huge.
Yeah, it's super huge.
Second thing I want to talk about around this announcement: USL2, NPSL, potentially UPSL. That's 3 leagues. How does all this soccer get played with Minneapolis City? Like tonight at the event, the club mentioned potentially a shared USL2 NPSL roster pool. How do you, John, see that coming together, and what does that mean for the players in the Minnesota area?
Well, I look at it as not like leagues, but as competitions. So you look at it, if you think about it from like a Premiership or Premier League perspective, or Manchester United has the Premiership, it has the Carabao Cup, it has the Champions League, it has the FA Cup. All of these different competitions, they draw from the same pool of talent. We're looking at the exact same model. However, we just happen to have to slice it a couple different ways. We look at the USL2 being the newest competition. We look at the NPSL as being and the UPSL as being a competition that we've already been involved in. We look at the US Open Cup as a competition that we also strive for. So you kind of throw all that into the mix, and how do you slice that up? You just essentially adjust the player structure from a roster perspective, and you have certain dedicated each individual competition, but they're in one collective home. The only difference being our futures program, which always was and will be an additive program for that 16 to 19 age range, where those players are really here to get something a little bit different and add on to what they already have. So you think about it from a UPSL perspective. The UPSL did nothing but great things for us this year in our first year there. Potentially, maybe you see us supplementing the opportunity for our futures players in a second season, we'll call it, and them playing a full summer season in a more structured environment like the UPSL versus having to play the friendly 11-a-side matches. So we haven't quite fully baked it all out yet, but that's kind of what I think as a whole we're thinking.
Yeah, I think that's really important to mention is that, we really don't have, if we do keep a player pool of whatever MC2 and NPSL guys, like that's not necessarily to say that we've just got another team that we're ready to elevate. Like the futures program is not really built for that, right? The futures program is meant to supplement youth development at the older levels, 16 to 19. So it's not a matter of like, oh, you just got guys that are ready to slot into a third league. Like we have to really evaluate whether or not that's going to be something that's going to benefit the guys, or it's going to be something that might just put extra wear and tear on them. We'll see. To be determined on that front, it sounds like.
Absolutely. A lot of things to unpack still for the old Minneapolis City Soccer Club.
Yeah, right. Like as usual, like big news, and then now we're going to figure out how it's going to work, and it'll all come together. We've got an entire off season to figure it out.
Yep, absolutely.
So this last season, it's done. Everyone's shifted gears to their
finally done.
Everyone has shifted gears to their high school career. Now we're on to college. Now we're on to potentially life after Minneapolis City. But
day jobs.
John, day jobs, sad. Oh man, the drudgery. But John, what you and I get to do tonight is recap how things went in 2020 with 2020 with our 2021 with our very unofficial People's Pitch podcast season recap and awards for the UPSL team. MC2 burst onto the scene with an additional layer of excellent Minnesota-based talent, and I think it's worth recognizing in an entire podcast here. So let's get to it, John. As you know, we like to cover off on things like big wins. We like to cover off on big moments, teachable moments, and then we get into our awards. So let's start with our big wins. And John, you and I have broken it down to a couple. First of all, match day or on the field wins, and then off the field wins. So let's get started with match day wins. What are a couple of your big wins on the season for this MC2 UPSL squad?
So 3 of them. Number 3, the FC Minneapolis 2-1 victory on the road. And this one particularly was one where it was kind of like early mid-season, and it was the first pass through. I mean, really, the whole season was a first pass through because we didn't play teams for a second time until we hit the playoffs. But It was kind of that crux of like we've kind of seen what the league has to offer, and Minneapolis City FC Minneapolis came in and scored first and that was like the gut punch after going down and tying in the first match in a very well fought match with Inter Minneapolis. But that turning point was that adversity that happened in that match to go down 1-0 right away and be like, okay, this season could go one of two directions. It could just like go into a frustrating Thunderdome of like, are we just going to constantly be giving up the first goal all the time? And in that instance, we did. But then on the back of 2 straight goals after that, and then just kind of figuring out just the way to win, it kind of showed that Minneapolis City 2 was not just Minneapolis City 2. They were a full-fledged Minneapolis City team.
Yeah, the thing with that game was that, of course, you have to respect FC Minneapolis on a number of levels. First, that they've been around for a while, but also we've kind of played them before, and you just kind of know their talent level was equal to, on some levels, MC2. They were a little older guys, a little more veteran players probably, but still, like, also way scrappier. Like, these are not guys that probably the MC2 players were the type of guys that MC2 players are used to seeing. So you knew that this would probably be a real physical challenge and a little bit different than what we had experienced up to then in the UPSL.
It kicked off like the what happens after you get punched in the face theory. Like it really did. But number 2 was the Granite City overtime win in the playoffs. I believe you were there, correct?
I was not. You were there.
Okay, so I was there alone. No, I wasn't alone. I brought my son Gus with me, so he was able to see the number 2 match. But it was that Granite City win to further us into a playoff position from a national perspective, and it was really the first time where I had seen a team all season go out of the gates and play better than Minneapolis City 2. And hats off to the Granite City group. I thought that was a really well organized, well-trained team. But it went down all the way to the death into the second overtime. And then you get the Jacek Nikowski goal. You get a second Jacek Nikowski goal. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, something special is here at the right exact time before the national playoffs start.
Yep. Yeah. This was a game where there was a lot of ambiguity. Like, I really wasn't sure how these were the playoffs or what these playoffs meant or why we were playing this team after already having beat them and no finished ahead of them in our but lower league soccer things. And so it was really nice to be able to continue to dominate our division conference, whatever it was called, in the UPSL, and make sure that we were able to advance. And I think that leads into our first big win, which is, of course, there's a dog on the field, John.
My best call ever. Best hands down. Retire now, Bisworm. That's a goal call ever.
Absolutely. Bob Costas, Al Michaels, John Bisworm, best calls of all time. There's a dog on the field. PK victory against the Iowa Raptors. And I think this is one of those things where we kind of understood, like, if you were like you and I, me especially, being in the booth every week for a home game, you understand the UPSL competition as potentially inconsistent, I guess is the best way to say it. Right. And it's one of those things that, you kind of expected the guys to be able to go out and beat sometimes what felt like elevated club level soccer. Right. These kids the kids that we had were well trained. They play well with each other, and they are all top talent in their schools or in their programs. So it's a matter of like, what happens when we go to the playoffs? What happens when we hit the national stage? And I think the Iowa Raptors game was our first test at home. And really, we hung on tight. We were able to defend well. We were able to attack well. But really, this Iowa team was really gritty. We were able to make it.
Really good. They were really good.
Really good. And it's finally it was one of those things where it's like, oh shit, this national playoff scenario might be a little more difficult than we expected. But we were able to hang 100%. On. Yeah, and make it to PKs, and really that's when the management took over. That's when the kids took over. I say kids because they're young guys. That's when these young men took over and really decided like they're going to take this game into their own hands. Especially Ben Schliemann,
the high schooler.
Yep, the high schooler stepping up, taking basically his first penalty kick scenario. His first kick scenario. He's never done it before. And for some reason,
18-year life never faced a penalty kick shootout. And then he comes off the bench and saves 2 penalties. Like that is
wild.
That is city history books right there.
Wild. So everyone, if you've not seen that, you got to go back into the YouTubes. Check it out on Minneapolis City's YouTube page, because you can watch that penalty kick situation. You can watch the whole game. Really, it was a really good game. But the last 10 minutes are super clutch, and that's why they are number 1 in our big wins of the season. Then we got some off the field big wins, and a lot of it is just like, shit, this actually happened.
Right. I mean, like this was so we talked about it before on the show that like the former U23 team members basically told the club, if we're going to be in this scenario again, we want to be in a league, and we want to fight, and we want to be able to win trophies. And where that all started was the development of a new staff. And I think the number 3 out of the top 3 here is we brought on an entirely new staff of 2 coaches, Michael Prunty and Kevin Lebon. And we're like, here's your thing. Go make it happen. This is what we want to happen this year, but go figure it out. And giving them the autonomy to be able to run with things, I think was the key here, because you had a well-traveled head coach in Michael Prunty, and you had an up-and-coming younger assistant coach in Kevin Lebon, and giving them the autonomy to be like, hey, welcome to the club. Here's your thing.
Figure it out.
It's kind of a difficult task. So I think that from an off the field perspective, like that's just it's a big deal for our little slice of soccer pie here, is just be like, hey, new guys, this is your thing, go do it. And I think that they performed admirably, and with the success the team had off the field, or on the field, that one off the field moment was definitely huge. I think number 2 is the impact of the Futures program. And we haven't necessarily designed to dive into like a Futures program recap like we have with the NPSL and the UPSL here, right. But the impact that the Futures program had on MC2 was massive. When you look at the players that not only participated in the UPSL season, but you look at like as a whole, but you look at the guys that kind of came on at right moments. You look at the Zach Susies, you look the Jacob Popkins, the Mean Streets.
Nathan Streets.
Jacek Nikowski, like those guys that came on from that Futures program were massive, and they fit in perfectly with what the coaching staff that we mentioned in number 3 here, they filled in admirably at the right exact time when we needed them. I mean, Ben Schliemann, we just talked about him, Futures player. So the impact that the Futures players had on MC2, I think as a whole throughout the season was really big.
Yeah, the addition of the Futures program, I mean, when you talk about, hey, new guys, go figure it out. I mean, the Futures program was the epitome of that, right? Where it was just like another instance this last year, besides the UPSL, where the club said, this is a great proposal. We're behind it. Execute
go do it.
Yeah. And Jeremiah Johnson and his staff did a really good job with that, with the help of a lot of NPSL players as mentor coaches. So hats off to everyone involved with the Futures, because without the Futures, what's up?
Wait, and myself, I was a mentor coach for like 4 weeks. So
couple weeks. You really changed the landscape of that Futures.
I did. I prepared those young men for the UPSL.
Well, hats off to you too, John. Finally, the off the field big wins. I mean, you talk about the MC2, the guys last year or 2 years ago that were involved in MC2, like you said, resoundingly asked for the opportunity to win trophies, and win trophies they did. 2 trophies won, a Final 8 appearance. I mean, Elite 8 appearance in the first year in the UPSL is pretty good. Losing only to eventual national champions, or at least finalists.
No, the national champions.
They were the national champions. So we lose to the eventual national champions, Long Island Contour
New York Contour
Couches or whatever. Very, very, very impressive for the first year. I think hard to underestimate exactly what that means, or hard to overestimate exactly what it means, because when you think about other times Minneapolis City has joined leagues, the PLA, the NPSL, has not gone great in the first year despite expectations. I think this is this is the only time so far where expectations have been still pretty high and we have met them.
Yeah,
exceeded them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I mean, we'll get into my final thoughts eventually about this team, but 2 trophies and a Final 8 appearance in what was our first year in a national competition is pretty darn good. But let's talk about the big moments, Nate.
They're huge.
We talked about some on the field matches, but let's talk about some really big moments. And I think we have 5 of these, so bear with us, folks. Number 5 being the first ever match for MC2 in the UPSL, the 2-2 draw against Inter Minneapolis. I thought that one in particular was like all right, let's do this. On paper, automatic 3 points, in my opinion.
You thought so?
That's why you play the games, right? And Inter Minneapolis came into Edor Nelson Field and put up one hell of a fight. And I think that was one of the huge moments, because it truly smacked everyone in the face that, like, hey, we have to play these games, and we have the horses to win the race, but we gotta play the games.
You gotta play them, and you gotta keep your head in them.
Yep, you gotta keep your head in them. And we saw in that match going down a goal, equalizing, going down a goal again, then equalizing, and then getting a point out of that game, which was really the only regular season blemish for the club. For Minneapolis City too. I think it was a really big moment. It was a gut check time, and it was an opportunity for not only the coaching staff but the team to understand, like, this is the landscape that we're in right now, and we got to figure out ways. And I think that was a big one.
Yeah, interesting to point out that, like, that was a team at the time that was coached by Jacob Popkin's dad, right?
Yep.
And I think the guy that kept Inter in the game and almost put them up and almost scored what was the winning goal at the time was a guy that had trialed with Minneapolis City. So it's not like, this is a small soccer town generally that, like, there are always some hurt feelings. There are some guys that are always out trying to prove something, and that was no exception, right? All of a sudden you've got a hungry team trying to show Minneapolis City what's up, and that was when we really needed to step up and answer. We kind of did, I guess, to get the draw.
Yep. So number 4, I go to the Derek Ullman bicycle kick goal.
Only number 4.
I know. Yeah, we got 3 big ones here to follow this one. But that goal not only did a few things, Nate. It not only cemented Derek Ullman in the folklore of Minneapolis City by scoring on a bicycle kick. He scores the game winner that puts us into the number 1 spot in the eventual playoffs. He broke his collarbone. He knocked himself out. It was a bicycle kick. I mean, what else do you want out of that equation? But that goal itself was a clawback goal that moved City into an opportunity to get a draw, to get a bye, to be able to move itself forward into the playoffs. Unfortunately, it knocked Derek out, but it just showed that Derek was he's a club guy, willing to put his body on the line, but also has a little bit of a flair for the dramatic, because that's a good way to score a goal, right?
I loved it. Like if if you think you have the opportunity to do it, you got to just rip a bicycle kick, I guess,
Yeah,
right? In those
why not?
situations, just make
Why
it
not?
happen. Make it happen.
Why not? So
Consequences be damned.
Right, yeah. Having to go to your day job or with your arm in a sling for a few months. Be damned, day job. But no, Derek's bicycle kick I will forever talk about that. Number 3, what I like to call Batman and Robin strike for 2 goals and 2 assists versus Rochester FC. And who I'm talking about here is the partnership that we saw grow between Derek Ullman, who we just mentioned, and Cole Schwartz. Early on in the season, and then into the midway point of the season, it was really which one of these guys is going to score a goal and which one of them is going to set it up for the other. And that game on the road against Rochester FC was putting up a good fight for a good portion of the first half. That Batman Robin partnership connecting, and it was almost like, when you're running the Prunty 3-5-2 and you have those 2 strikers, one has to always be doing the dirty work and the other one has to be feasting off the fruits of the other one's labor. And it was always one or the other. And in this match, it was Derek Ullman doing the dirty work, setting up Cole Schwartz, who was finishing on the day. And it was a really good opportunity for us to see like a true strike force partnership, which you don't see in the modern game much anymore because the majority of teams run with one forward. So it was kind of that Prunty 3-5-2 showing like what the offensive portion of that could be, and seeing the cohesiveness between these 2 guys who are literally light years away from each other. Cole is finishing up his senior year in college. Derek is a well-traveled men's league,
30 years old.
Yeah, 30 years old, amateur soccer player. And seeing the 2 of them come together was a really big moment for this team.
Yeah, that was just always fun to watch them, because they had kind of a hive mind. We're like, on one week one of them would be the advanced player, and it was like they would somehow decide that Cole would be the guy scoring goals, and the next week it'd be all about Derek just deciding, I'm going to be the one that takes the shots this week, and they're all going to be from distance, and they're all going to be bangers, and Cole is just kind of the decoy. And they had that figured out. It was so good. It was so good. Number 2 big moment, number 2 of the 5, I guess. We're going to talk Jacek Nikowski, first half hat trick on June 25th, a 5-1 victory against Turbo Sports. And the cool thing about this game, the crazy thing about this game, is that Minneapolis City was down to 10 men after 4 minutes. Some would say unjustly. Logan Huber was given a red card for a challenge in and around the box after 4 minutes. Yeah. And I'm not super excited about the call, but Minneapolis City was also not super excited about the call because they answered back, and it was almost like they were playing with 12 men for the rest of the game. We destroyed this Turbo Sports team, and it was never close. And I think it was on the back of Jacek Nikowski's first half hat trick. I could not believe
his first ever call up from the Futures program.
Yeah, I could not believe the energy this kid brought to that game, and just super dynamic, wonderful offensive talent in Jacek. And I hope he comes back year after year, because City could always use a kid like that. Next up, and we talked about it a little bit with the dog on the field, but the big top 5 moment for Minneapolis City 2 is, of course, the Ben Schliemann penalty kick shootout. When you talk about a guy who has that kind of talent, he had been called up to Minneapolis City just as kind of roster filler to the NPSL squad a couple times. He traveled with the team down to Eris, and of course, as happens against Eris, you just got to throw.
Yeah. He had to play forward against Eris.
Yeah, you've got.
So he made his first appearance as not a goalkeeper.
Yep. They were like, fuck it, throw the kid up there at striker and see what he can do, just to kind of give someone a breather and make sure that we're staying healthy.
Injury,
as the game
an injury
waned.
sub.
Yeah. So Ben Schliemann finally gets the call as a keeper in a Minneapolis City game, and it's in as a sub right before penalties are about to begin. And he has never been in the game for a penalty shootout situation before, but really just approached it with the utmost confidence and ends up saving 2 penalties. Minneapolis City 2 beats Iowa Raptors on the back of that penalty shootout. Amazing moment for the club. Amazing moment for young high schooler Ben Schliemann.
What about his oh shit moment when he first got on the field and almost handled the ball outside the box? Like his first touch.
You don't remember that stuff.
You don't. Because he went into that shootout and all of a sudden it was like, this guy's not in high school anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And then he makes those saves, and then, you know, he's doing his hands to the sky flex, and it's just like, what a perfect moment. And then all of a sudden he's engulfed by humans and pets and everyone on the planet to celebrate that victory.
Pets, that's for sure. Up next, John, we're going to talk teachable moments, because not everything is perfect, as things tend to be in lower league soccer. There's always things that we have to learn. And the first thing, of course, in MC2 as well as the NPSL, but MC2 especially, is like, how does the club deal with the revolving door of players at this level? Future call-ups, you're talking about NPSL, recovery stints, rehab stints. You're talking about, there's some mainstays that were in and out with injury. Like MC2, week in, week out, rarely had the same roster, and that's tough to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We talked about it multiple times in the show. It was like, who are we going to get this week? Who's coming back in, or who's new? You know, it's really difficult at this level, because that's just the gravity of the situation. Like, you never really know. And yes, the NPSL team was a little more solidified, and the UPSL team, we tried to make it more solidified, but just the landscape of things with seeing players like getting done with college late, or not able to fully participate because of injury or what it might be, it was consistently a revolving door for a good portion of that season.
Yeah.
Number 2 is, from a teachable moment perspective, the movement between the teams. And I think that I put this on the list because I know that it's tough, because you look at the success that the NPSL team was having throughout the season, and it really is truly our intention to have players, that are deserving, get the opportunity to play, where they fit in. But when you have guys performing and you're on like a 10-game winning streak, are you really going to want to adjust that or make those tactical changes from a roster perspective, from a coaching staff perspective, to just throw a guy in who's deserving? And it's kind of tough. So from a teachable moment perspective, it's like, how do we as an organization make that happen more so now that with the announcement that we made in the league that we're going to be moving into? Like, how do we continue to not lose sight of the fact that some of these guys are deserving of a chance, whether it be a potential slim chance, but when are they deserving of it, and how do we like achieve that for them?
Yeah, there's a fine line to walk between when you're looking at players that are either exceeding their expectations at a level like the UPSL level. Obviously, you don't want to move them up and kind of get them out of their groove. But on the other hand, like, if you've got some guys that are kind of struggling at that level, like, do you really want to knock them down, or do you really want to take them off the roster to kind of destroy some confidence, knowing that you might need to rely on them later in the season? So that I do not envy Coach Prunty and Kevin, Coach Liban, when it comes to how do you balance that out, and how do you make sure that you've got the right guys there week in and week out? It's really, really hard.
Yeah, it's super hard, and I think they did a decent job, but I think we can always do better. If our mission is to elevate players, and make that pathway to pro now, We really need to think about how we're going to do that, and maybe do a little bit better. Not that we did a bad job, but maybe do a little bit of a better job. And then finally, the number one teachable moment is there's some serious fucking teams outside of the region.
Surprise!
Surprise! New York Contour, specifically Iowa before them. That Iowa Raptors team, I think, was actually more talented than the New York Contour that ended up winning the UPSL. So hats off to MC2 for disposing of them, be it through penalty kick, the unconventional way, not in the 90 minutes. But we always knew it was going to happen, Nate, that we would get out of our conference and all of a sudden there'd be some Goliath sitting there waiting for us. And I think that we talked about it. We were what we thought prepared for it, but that New York Contour team in the final 8 was the real deal. And it's something that we have to think about if we're going to continue to enter teams into this competition, that we need to do a better job of understanding what's next and how do we prepare for it.
Yeah, when you think about like moving on in the playoffs, we had to assume that not every team was going to show up down a man or show up without a goalkeeper or whatever, right? Like just the things that happened to us over the course of the local UPSL season are just not going to be consistent across the country. And you got to assume that the other teams we run into probably were the Minneapolis cities of their area, where like they're organized and they can show up for a game and all this stuff, right? They've got all the talent. So it was really interesting and pretty cool to see teams like Iowa and New York show up with actual good players and challenge us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up next, John, let's get to the individual awards, and we'll start with the coaching staff member of the year. Coaching staff for this team was small, but I think you got
one or two guys.
It's one or two guys. But I mean, I think if you looked at the greater picture of the Minneapolis City organization, I think this guy should win something. He definitely deserves recognition, if not only for his work with MC2, but just like how he was able to make sure that the MC2 players fit so well in the organization as a whole.
And we're talking about Coach Michael Prunty as our coaching staff member of the year. And like I said, it's a 50-50 coin toss between who could it possibly be. Newsflash, Kevin Lebon gets honorable mention. But from a head coaching perspective, we talked about all of the challenges. We talked about how it's like, hey, welcome to the organization. Here's your team. Go do something with it. I think the thing that we lose sight of that was the really hard part was, from a coaching staff perspective, the coaching staff for each of our teams has the opportunity to really select their team. For Coach Prunty coming in when he did and having some returning U23 members and some members we were going to be bringing in to drop down, there wasn't really an opportunity for him to build his own team. But what he did was build a style of play that was his own, and he trained that in with his players. We talked about the Prunty 3-5-2. It morphed into the Prunty 3-4-3 at times. But what he was able to do with what he was given was very admirable. And then you look at how far that team went, and being one of the best teams out of the 5,000 that the UPSL has, and it's nationally, was really admirable. So he definitely gets the top nod there. And then honestly, Coach Lebon, Kevin Lebon, is a close second because of what not only he did to support Coach Prunty, but when Coach Prunty was unable to be there, huge match in that Iowa Raptors game, the first ever true playoff game, outside of whatever you called the league playoff that happened. But the first national playoff game that this team is in, he's not there. Kevin steps in. Kevin makes the call to substitute a goalkeeper. He makes the call to bring on a couple high school kids that end up scoring goals to keep the team in it. It was a truly gutsy call, but also just the work that Kevin did definitely it warrants some mention.
Yeah, props to both those guys. On to Citizen of the Year for this is basically going to remain the same, because there's a reason we gave these guys the award when it came to the NPSL side, and it's because of their unwavering support of the club, and that never flagged. They were there for the UPSL, they were there for the NPSL. These guys were all-stars when it came to supporters, and they are
the Pauls. Congratulations, the Pauls. I will pinpoint the one match. I mean, I anytime I'm involved in a bench scenario, which is few and far between these days because we have such a long, robust coaching staff, but every time I'm on the bench and I turn around and look in the stands, who do I see, whether rain, wind, or snow, regionally, nationally, wherever we're playing, the Pauls are there and they're supporting the club. And the Rochester FC away game was specifically one that stuck in my mind because out of like the 6 people who showed up for Minneapolis City, the first 2 guys there were the Pauls. And it just shows just how much they're invested in the club, how a lot of folks come out to watch the NPSL team play and don't even care about the UPSL. But these guys,
which is too bad.
Which is too bad. But these guys care about the club and they want to support anyone involved in it, and they do so by always being at the games.
Yeah, props to the Pauls. Next up, John, Young Player of the Year. I mean, it's got to be the unanimous decision here is with this young man who has done scored so much. He did so much. He really advanced the team as far as it could go, almost single-handedly.
Yeah, Jacek Nikowski. He was a late ad. He started out. He was a late ad even for the Futures program, coming in, transferring schools and moving to Minnesota, and just kind of not knowing where to go, what to do from a soccer perspective. Joined the Futures program, and then ultimately through his play there was able to elevate himself on the back of his play into the UPSL fixture, scoring a hat trick in his first game and being an ever-present danger from an offensive perspective. Definitely this one goes to Jacek.
Yeah, and on to St. Thomas for this guy, right?
Yeah, on to St. Thomas. And then ultimately our honorable mention for this category, your guy, well, your offensive guy, we'll call it, because we know your guy's the mean streets, Nathan Streets. But Zach Susi, let the Susi loosey.
Yes.
From the jump, Minnesota's high school player of the year, Mr. Soccer, Zach Susi, is a close second because he was unable to feature for the team the whole entire season due to some obligations outside in club soccer, playing in the All-American game, traveling, trying to find a school to play for, which is shocking. But every time he stepped on the field, he made an impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good kid. Really awesome to see him succeed at this level. Would have been cool to see him on the field more, but every time he was on the field, it was 110%. And he's got a fun name to say.
Absolutely.
Up next, John, most improved. And this is one of those things that's like you said, the standard here is from the start of the season to the end. And you, a guy that has seen all these players come through trial and training and game time all the way to the playoffs, I think you've got a lot of great perspective on this kid. Winner for most improved player, Luke Lindsay. Why, John? Why Luke?
Well, Luke has been a member of the club for going on 3 seasons now. Started out with the former U23 squad. And when we were looking at the makeup of how we're going to put the roster together for MC2, outside defender was something that we just didn't know what we could do to fill the role. Centrally, we were pretty solid, but we didn't know what we could do. And then ultimately, when Coach Bunty moved to the 3-5-2, how could we find that wing back that would be able to get up the field, but also defend, in a 4-back from a defensive perspective. And Luke basically transformed his game from what I saw from the first 2 seasons with us and what I saw in his breadth of work in college. I didn't see the player that I saw this summer in anything before. I think Luke really latched onto the opportunity to be able to showcase what he can do from an offensive perspective, getting forward in the position as a wingback. But on a defensive end, always there, locked up his guy. We talk about Matt Murakami, who was one of our standout players in the MPSL team. Luke Lindsay is almost out of the same mold. Like, no disrespect, Luke, but you look at Luke and you're like, looks like a nice guy, doesn't look like he's going to fight. And then as soon as the whistle blows, turns into that absolute savage who fights. And I think that he absolutely leveled up. From an honorable mention perspective, Abdi Kadi. Abdi was our first ever development player that we ever brought in 4.5, maybe call it 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And super raw talent, comes from, the pedigree of the MTAs of the world, and ultimately went on to play some college soccer at the Division I level before moving back to the city. But seeing not only the player but the person, and the guy that's always willing to just be there and to be grateful for the opportunity. I thought this year was the year where his play on the field actually leveled up to match what we saw 4 or 5 years ago. Yes, he didn't get a ton of minutes for MC2, but when he did get in, was a calming presence in the midfield and offered a lot to be able to support what the system Coach Prunty was trying to put in place, offer the support to make that work. And I think that he did a really good job whenever he was in the match.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, Abdi, we've seen him. Was he on the team at that scrimmage against FC Minneapolis all the way back at the Blaine National Sports Complex?
He was not. That was the Open Cup team, but he was involved in quite a few closed-door scrimmages against Minnesota United.
Yes, and as a high school kid, it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this. And he did okay. So it's really good to see him grow into a nice young player. And really, when he was out there, he was calm on the ball and offered a number of assists and some good chances, and really, like you said, made a difference when he was on the field. Up next, John, we're moving on to defensive. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Newcomer of. Did I scroll down too far? We'll go to breakout. We'll go to breakout player of the year. The scroll went a little too far. Breakout player of the year. This is a player that busted onto the scene after a little bit of hype and really made a huge difference in MC2's results.
And that's Mitch Wolf, who's currently playing professionally in the NISA Fall League with Stumptown Athletic. But Mitch is just such a great dude, and he's a team first guy, and it's very difficult to get out of a goalkeeper, because goalkeepers are all on an island by themselves, and you think about them as a very individually focused player, because 10 guys have to break down before they got to get into action. So it is very individualistic from a goalkeeper perspective. But Mitch was constantly there when this team needed him, and was making the stand on your head spectacular saves to keep the team into situations that ultimately turned into victories. And he did it in the fall 7v7 league when he first joined us, and then continued to do that, and even added more onto it into the UPSL season.
Yeah, just an amazing veteran presence, really. Like when you talk about an older guy coming and joining the team, similar to Derek Coleman, Mitch really was able to provide that guidance to a lot of young players and be super calm and collected when it came to the team being on the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And then honorable mention, Abai Habat. He was voted captain. Abai came to us via the Open Cup roster we first had in 2016. Ended up moving on and playing professionally in Sweden, and then came back into town really looking to continue playing soccer, but didn't quite know if his heart was in it. And I think that from a breakout perspective, his veteran presence to be that former professional that showed a lot of these younger guys like how to do it at this level, I think was immense.
Amazing. Next up, newcomer of the year. I like this guy a lot, John. I think he was all over the field. He could play almost any position. It's Scotty Heinen.
Yeah, Scotty was just unbelievable. And I'll sum it up. We lost Kevin Hoof from an organization perspective. We lost that Swiss Army knife that can kind of be plugged in a couple different positions. Scotty ended up playing more of a defensive role for Minneapolis City too. I know he's more of an offensive player, but he also would pop up on those offensive opportunities. And I think he was the guy who came in the fall, was kind of like, yeah, he belongs in the conversation, but like, how does he work on this team? And I think that he really carved out his own opportunity by how diverse his game can be and how he can really contribute to this team.
And then honorable mention?
Derek Ullman. I mean, when you talk about a newcomer, Derek came to us through the open trial process. Wasn't initially selected in 2020. We didn't have the 2020 season. We were putting the roster together. The one thing that we were looking at was like, look at all these young strikers we have. We have Adam King. We have Cole Schwartz. We have Nils Gilbrunson. What we don't have is that guy who has been there before. And I immediately went back to the old soccer Rolodex, Nate, and I contacted Derek and was like, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for that veteran guy. I don't know what your position is going to be on this team. It'll be whatever you earn yourself, but I need someone like you who's been there before, because we don't know what this league is going to throw at us. I need a guy like you. And ever since that conversation, the immediate answer was, all right, let's do it. When and where do I have to show up? And every opportunity that Derek came onto the field, you look at Derek from a gameplay perspective, and you're like, he's kind of not doing a ton maybe in some games, but then all of a sudden he pops up and does the right thing, makes the right run, makes the right touch, the right pass, shoots when he needs to shoot. The ability for him to play balls in from a set piece perspective was huge in the season, and just an all around great club guy. Was there tonight. So it was good to see him out there, and I think he's totally bought into the opportunity that we gave him, and he really carved out his own footprint. Not only breaking his collarbone to score a bicycle kick, but he's willing to be part of the club in general.
I was going to say, dude just loves to play soccer. He loves to be around soccer. He's really, from what he said tonight, really excited to be in the Minneapolis City organization.
Yep, absolutely.
So really cool. Defensive MVP. Now finally we're on to. we're on the right track here. This is a kid that I've known his little brother for a few years, so it's good to see him mentioned.
And that's Logan Huber. Logan is not only just a massive human being, he's a massive key pivotal piece on the chessboard of a soccer team, and that's at central defense. I don't think that Minneapolis City 2 got scored on more than maybe 3 times when he was on the field.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he had that red card and some goals happened, and then ultimately in the playoffs too. But Logan is the antithesis of a defender. Went from Minnesota, moved out to Omaha, Nebraska, played for University of Nebraska Omaha, a fantastic soccer program. Transferred back into to St. Thomas. Things weren't working out in Nebraska, and he is the type of guy that you never have to worry about when the ball gets over half line. He's the guy who's always got the foot in the way, always making the right tackle. And was just absolutely huge for this team from a defensive standpoint. And then honorable mention goes to Mitch Wolf. I don't think we need to talk a ton about Mitch Wolf, but if you're the goalkeeper who ultimately moved on to be picked up by a professional team, you were pretty good defensively.
Heard that. Offensively, John, these dudes scored goals. They scored goals.
Offensive MVP goes to Cole Schwartz, and his Twitter feed of goal is 100% correct. Is he the most flashy player? Absolutely not. Is he going to create for himself? Maybe. Is he going to score? Absolutely. I mean, the guy is just born to find the back of the net. And 90% of this season, up until we talk about honorable mention here, he was lifting the goal scoring load. And just a fantastic guy. A fantastic player. He multi goal games, and really the true offensive backbone of this team. And then honorable mention goes to Jacek Nikowski. We talked about him before. The guy did the exact same thing Cole did. Cole hit a little bit of a skid, and then Jacek came on at the absolute right time and was able to pick up where Cole left off.
So without belaboring it, John, let's get into Player of the Year for MC2. Lot at stake in this first year of this program, and this guy really helped lift the team to the heights that it was able to reach. Elite 8 in the country, thanks to guys like
Cole Schwartz. I mean,
yes.
we literally just talked about him, but the team itself would not have been as successful if Cole was not putting the ball in the back of the net. And I know you can say about any forward, like, hey, this guy's scoring a bunch of goals. Like, he's the true leader of the team. But Cole, being a quiet guy he is, just doing his work, like I said, quietly, scoring all these goals, very important goals, crucial goals. And I really do feel like he absolutely warrants a Player of the Year.
Yeah, nothing flashy from Cole, but really they were the goals that came early in games or in crucial parts of the games. Like when you look at some other guys that may have scored goals for MC2, it was like garbage time, 3-4 goals up. But Cole was the one that really was able to dig the graves of our opponents with his finishing ability and his situational and positional awareness alongside his favorite strike partner, Derek Ullman. So really hats off to Cole. Really made MC2 debut season what it was. Thank you so much. As a reminder, the team stats for the Minneapolis City 2 squad in their first UPSL season, 10 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. That's 10 wins in a row, by the way, also. And that only loss coming at the last game, obviously, in the playoffs. 31 points on the season, 35 goals for, only 9 goals against. That's
single digits.
Yeah, that's really good. They were undefeated in the first year of their UPSL regular season, national final 8 and 2 trophies. Of course, I don't get what this means, but they had the regular season league champion and they were also the league tournament champions. So they were
yeah, I don't get it either. But
hey, trophy time. Trophies for you, trophies for me.
Yeah, it's what they had to do. We had trophies. We drank beer out of them. It was awesome.
It might be really hard for some regular NPSL fans to begin to wrap their heads around watching 2+ teams next year. But I'm going to tell you, John, this MC2 squad was a great warm-up to next year being NPSL and USL2 action. There's just so much value in seeing the next generation of Minneapolis City soccer on the field this summer. It reminded me of the old days, really watching those PLA kids who you knew would amount to something one of these days. You were just hoping that they would develop within our system. And I'm really hoping all these guys stick in the system as long as possible and develop into the players that they clearly can be. Honestly, I'm really on the edge of my seat waiting to see which of them will step up to make the roster next year. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I talked about my final thoughts earlier, and then I wanted to wait for it. But I'm just so damn proud of this group of guys and what they were able to accomplish in year one. And when I say the group of guys, I mean the coaching staff down to the players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to say to the club, hey, we want to be in a league and win trophies and give us the opportunity, and then to have the output that they did, which was basically winning all but one trophy they possibly could have won, was just fantastic. I mean, I constantly talk to soccer folks, you know, I'm on podcasts, I'm talking to other team folks, and they constantly go like, man, you had 2 teams in the final 8 of both of the leagues that you entered. Like, that's huge. That's huge. And it was more so expected of the MPSL team. But the UPSL team, like, it's not the ugly stepchild. It really wasn't.
No.
I rue the day that we had to call it MC2 because it's not that. It's one and Minneapolis City Soccer Club, and this was just another extension of the club. And they did such a fantastic job, and I'm super proud of those guys.
Well, John, sadly, that is it. But those were the awards for the year. Props to all of our UPSL players. Props to the coaches. Props to the fans who came out and cheered them on in their first year. Hope to see some manner of product on the field next year to compete in the UPSL because it's such a great opportunity for young players to
play the beautiful game,
prove themselves. Yeah, exactly. That's all for this week's show.
Oh, props to you, Nate, for trying to get through this close I wrote for you.
Oh, no. Oh, boy. All right, here we go. That's all for this week's show. Thank you, as always, to our show sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Hey, do you love it when you're called one of the cool guys? I know I do, because nothing fills my fuzzy bucket up than someone saying, hey, Nate, you are so cool, and I have footballstadiumprints.com to thank for that. Whether it's when I strut my stuff around town in my Edor Nelson t-shirt, people say, look at that cool guy. Or when my wife looks lovingly at me across the breakfast table as I sip out of my Edor Nelson mug and says, man, I sure did marry a real cool guy. Or when I parade my neighbors through my house gloating over how cool I am and they see Edor Nelson print hanging on the wall, they think to themselves, this guy Nate is like the coolest guy I know. I have footballstadiumprints.com to thank for being such a cool fucking guy at all potential cool touch points in my life. Do you want to be cool like me? You are in luck. You can go to footballstadiumprints.com and use the code CROWS10 to save yourself 10% off your whole super cool guy order. They ship from the United States, so you don't have to worry about any uncool international shipping fees, which is super cool. Footballstadiumprints.com. We love them, and you should too if you want to be cool. Hey, if giving back to the community means a lot to you, maybe it's time to give to the club that gives back. Minneapolis City is a 501c3 that provides a safe, reliable, and fun environment for young people to play the beautiful game. Look for us this summer playing with kids at parks and community centers all around the city. Consider a tax-deductible donation to a true city-focused organization. Whew, that was fast. All right. It's never a bad time to become a super cool Minneapolis City member. Memberships just went on sale today for the next season. And we're doing something really cool with them for only $99 for a full season pass, all the way down to the $69 half season pass and $50 out of town membership. You can support the club and get some cool stuff in return. You get an exclusive cool membership scarf, a cool membership card that gives you 10% off at the club shop, which is going to be in a cool new location, and other super cool deals. You also get a vote on important super cool club matters, including selecting the membership board, who are all cool people, and choosing scarf and kit designs. Totally cool. I added too many cools in there. Visit mplscitysc.com and make it happen because you are also cool. Hey, send us mail. Mail is cool. Hit us up on Twitter at Mules Pitch or through email at mcscpodcast@gmail.com. All questions, comments, and concerns are welcome. You can always hit the club up at MPLS City SC. That's all for this week. Woo! I've been so cool. I'm Nate. That was okay, John. He's okay. He's not that cool. Join us in 2 weeks. We're going to be back in a couple weeks. We've got some super cool guests on this super cool podcast. There are going to be some players. I think we're going to have players. That feels like a player kind of weird.
You got to.
That's cool. That's cool.
Cool. That's cool.